I'm Ryan Grove. This is my wife Tiffany Grove. Take it away, love.
Well, yesterday I had mentioned that around 1300 BC that the Romans began to learn how to defeat charioteers, so they were a lot more effective in battle. And you had mentioned the Etruscans, right? And so my notes have the Urnfield culture. It's northern Italy, creates a better slashing sword, and it spreads even to Egypt. So that was just kind of in regard to me talking about how quickly new tools spread, and kind of where the Romans are considered to have come from. Celts and Romes, or Celts and Romans, they found a huge graveyard in Germany, but they held sway from 1300 BC to 750 BC. And Homer said that Troy was destroyed the same time as the Hittites, and Aeneas is the legendary founder of Rome, an exile from Troy. So those were some weird little stories I found.
So you're suggesting that Rome was around 1000 BC? From what I understand,
Well, the beginnings of it, kind of the beginning formation of Rome,
that
as a kind of a people that start to get together till they
hmm.
form, what's more formally known as Rome.
Go.
Well, there's a bunch of different minor cultures and a variety of sea people. Even the tribe of Dan, I think, is mentioned in the Danuna or the Danois. Um, they're mentioned by the Hittites, the Greeks, and the Romans. And the Bible says that Dan took to the sea. Uh, this tribe is mentioned in the Amarna letters, and a lot of people think that the Greek mythology has has drawn some from Hebrew culture, like the myth of Hercules actually being about Samson.
Although the
So,
accomplishments of the two characters are vastly different. The only similarity that I
sure.
see would just
Hmm.
be their strength, but maybe that's
Right.
just because of the differences in culture in the two cultures.
So,
But yeah, I heard Dan went to Europe, and the River Danube is named
and
after
then
him.
in 1500 BC, there's rune work and metalworking in France. There's the Olmecs.
And
There's
South.
Nazca, the Incans, the Amazon. Uh, they recently found in Central America La Mosquitia, which is a funny name.
That was Ecuador, right?
Honduras.
Honduras, okay. But that's that really
And
terrible jungle.
there's the Muisca people. Um,
What are you naming these civilizations to point out?
well, what was going on like maybe 1,000 years ago?
2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Teotihuacan had 200,000 people at 426 AD to 437 AD. Um, oh, and then you mentioned red-headed giants, and I wanted to point out that scientists actually claim that the reason the giants in Nevada and Kentucky had red hair is because when they're exposed to the atmosphere, there's a chemical reaction because they've been submerged for so long. It makes their hair turn red.
So that would be the case with any discovered remains. anywhere on the planet. I mean, the hair would do the same thing then.
I
Right?
guess unless somebody was a little more professional about how they unearthed it, they might use something like a hermetically sealed chamber or something.
Well, I'm gonna Occam's razor it for myself.
Okay.
And I'm gonna stick with it. There's probably red hair in those cases, which is why it's not red hair in some other cases.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just red hair. But once again, what do I know? What else you got?
Well, I do definitely think there's evidence of some advanced older cities. They found a stoneway bridge from Sri Lanka to southern India, which is submerged now underwater. They found different city remnants, more often on the coastline. They found that anomaly in the Baltic Sea.
Explain
There's
that.
the
Explain that anomaly.
well, I don't think they've
They found this big giant thing, right?
yeah, it's like kind of circular, and it has a funny shape to it, like it looks like it's very geometrically drawn, and then there's like the circle, and it looks like giant plateaus or stone stairs. So they're trying to get money to. It's tough. I think what a lot of people, I heard some people when we were looking at some videos today talking about, they don't put a lot of money into looking at possible underwater city sites. And what people, I don't think about is, I was watching them do some of that for this Baltic anomaly, and every time they move down there, they stir up dust. So, and then depending on how strong the current is too, like dust is always being stirred up, so they might only be underwater for 40 minutes before they can't see anything anymore.
Yeah, that would be
So
super frustrating.
Yeah, so it's really hard to do a real deep underwater research. I don't know what all tools, if there would be somebody that had more money with better tools, if they could do a better job, or if that LiDAR would be effective in the ocean, I don't know. That LiDAR, what they're using to find the grid work in
Using
the
lasers like a
rainforest.
radar to outline things that are buried, like in the forest in Honduras.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of other regions where they've found remnants. So
Remnants of what?
cities.
Yeah.
So
Something I've noticed is that when I first started looking into this, that in I guess kind of the way that our talk has been going, I've done it also, is I've lumped together these two tiers of evidences of prior advanced civilization. And one tier is what I believe to be antediluvian megalithic structures, like that we talked about before, like the pyramids, for instance, Machu Picchu, or all these megalithic. There's Japan has a bunch of pyramids, and they have a bunch of underwater pyramids, and you should look at photos of that. That's pretty astonishing. And of course, China has thousands of pyramids, from what I understand, and all these huge, like Stonehenge, stonework, giant. That's one level, and I believe that was before the flood. And then these cities and these buildings that I talk about that are exhibited in the World Expositions and the World Fairs 150 years ago, that is a later, I believe, created by a later advanced civilization that was drawing off what the remnants of information that they were able to glean from the antediluvian civilization. On the Joe Rogan podcast, there's this geologist who's just written a book, and I think it's called The Magicians of the Gods. And him and another American, he's from England, and there's an American.
He's not a geologist, he said he's just a reporter.
On geological anomalies. And he collaborated with an American geologist, and they've determined that, we only know about Homer's account of the city of Atlantis from Plato. As they said, you might imagine that there's that this legend has popped up in different cultures around the world, but actually no, it's only popped up one place. And Plato gave a date for when the event of Atlantis sinking took place, and he got it to, and he said that it was like around, maybe 11,000 years ago from today. So like 9,000 BC-ish. And the geologist and this author concluded that there was some major water event that occurred and has left global scars that correlate with that date, which they came up with independently. They only compared it to Plato's account of the sinking of Atlantis. And
But they say 12,000 years ago, the flood.
they said 11 something, and since it's year 2000, we're in the 2000s, and that would be like somewhere between 9 and 10,000 BC. And I thought that was pretty astonishing. And now the second tier of advanced civilization, like I said, was gleaning remnants and leftovers of this Atlantean civilization, which apparently encompassed the globe, and everything was really big. And I think there's evidence from those structures that support the possibility of giants, like big giants, existing, like the Bible said, prior to the flood and after. And now these amazing buildings that we see today, like from the World's Fair, I've been looking more into this, and I'm finding that almost all countries have this identical school of architecture
Paraguay,
manifested
Japan,
Yep.
China, Italy,
everywhere.
Argentina.
South America, North America, Japan, Asia, Australia, Europe, everywhere. And the more that I look at the dates, the construction dates of these things, the more I'm inclined to believe that part of historical narrative is not true. I also saw today that in the 1940s, the CIA released a document accusing the communists in the Soviet Union of deliberately rewriting their history involving Tartaria in order to make it conform to a narrative that doesn't highlight acts of aggression by Russia in the past and supports more of the ideals of communism. And that was a CIA dossier, and that was released in 1989. And of course, the CIA was accusing Russia of doing that, but the CIA did nothing to correct it as far as establishing the truth about that history and dispensing it, to our education system. So crazy stuff, huh?
Who has this document?
It was released by the CIA in 1989, and it was from, I believe, like 1947.
That they're hiding the previous Tartarian culture?
The history of Tartaria. Yeah, Tartaria.
That's something I guess I'd have to see to believe.
You were in the room when it was on, but...
Well, that doesn't mean
I'll have to show it to you later then, when we're finished with this, if you really doubt that.
Okay.
That'd be a neat thing for me to make up.
Well, no, I just... I would be surprised if that were true.
Do you believe that Tesla was right about the ether and plasma and electromagnetics? That's actual physics? Or do you
I
believe
don't know about him
straight
believing in,
Newtonian?
I know that he was an electromagnetics man, and that up until that point that, they had Maxwell, and then they had the other fella, so they had electronics and magnetic waves separate. Then they finally brought them together and realized that light was an electromagnetic wave, and then in came Einstein or whatever. That's all I know.
Well, Tesla, one of his inventions, the Tesla Tower, had a huge globe on it, and he was able to extract energy from the atmosphere freely and direct it places and use it. But he also had
I think his name was Maxwell Clark or something.
he also invented Tesla pyramids, which did the same thing. And I've seen some speculation that the pyramid shapes, some of these megalithic pyramids, were actually the casings, the remnants of a very similar technology that was able to extract electricity from the atmosphere and then dispense it to its
I
population.
heard it was a coil, like a Tesla coil.
Yeah, there's a Tesla coil too. Sure is.
Okay.
So, the government has hoodwinked us in covering up the full potential of Tesla's discoveries, and given us sloppy Edison version, and that's what's being dispensed to us. We know that it's lied about history, or it supports lies about history, like you pointed out the other day, that the whole myth of pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock and all of these little tiny mistruths that are being fed to us as facts. We know that that's not honest. That's not honest history. That's just fabricated fantasy, obviously. So we know it does that. Now there's this whole denying UFOs for the last 50 years, saying nope, it's all crazy. And then suddenly there's this disclosure movement now from the government confirming. So either they lied to us before when they were saying no, there is no aliens, or they're lying to us now by saying that there are aliens. So do you see that?
Are you sure they said there was aliens?
They're saying it now. They're releasing footage of unidentified flying objects.
Well, that's just unidentified flying objects.
And that, so we have these increasingly more frequent areas of government influence over the culture of the United States and Western culture, where they're fibbing to us about stuff. And this fact pushes me more towards the idea that there really was an advanced civilization, post-Diluvian, drawing from remnants of an even older civilization, and that I think that the whole Industrial Revolution up until the technological revolution of modern times has really been the result, and I've said this before, but I'm trying to give it a clearer context this time, that it's just been mostly the product of discovery of technologies already existing, the reverse engineering of them, and then the reinventing of technologies based on what they learned from re-engineering these other ones. And the infrastructure that was already here is just too astonishing, and the buildings, I mean, I can talk all day, and like you said, we're not going to like edit in photos or anything like this, but I would urge anyone to just go online and look at these start with the World's Fair expositions, and then look at state and capitol buildings. I mean, in Japan, they have a building that looks just like the White House. I mean, it's that same dome in the middle and all the pillars and the wide wings. And that was also found in it's like around Vietnam, somewhere in there. Anyway, like I said, everywhere there are these buildings. And if you go look at the historical narrative of when they were built and who the architects were, etc., it's like 2-3 years. Even these cathedrals, like the cathedrals in San Francisco, were built in just maybe like 5-10 years. But you look back throughout history, the history of cathedral building, and you realize some of these cathedrals, just the cathedral themselves, with the backing and support of the Catholic Church, took like 80 to 100 years, sometimes even more, to construct one building. Something fishy is still definitely afoot here. I think I used two expressions and combined them into that one.
Hmm. Yeah, because fish don't use their feet.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. At least not anymore, according to... No. I was going to make an evolution joke, but I got it backwards. So, you got anything to respond to that with?
No.
Well, then let's end it here. And until next time, yo.